0130410, construction replacement of weir in conjunction with NRCS grant, main floodwater channel, weir number 2, Willacy County, phase 2. Everything is in order, it's been signed off by the project engineer.
Move for approval?
Second.
So,
Got
hold on.
Yes, sir.
everything has been done on that?
No, sir, we're still under construction on the project out there. This is our first payment on that project, sir.
And the timetable?
They probably have about another 45 days, Commissioner, to finish up. The weir structure is up in place. What they're doing is the installation of all the riprap with NRCS coordination on it, sir.
Thank you.
Those in favor of the motion is made and seconded indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Item C, request approval to issue manual checks after review and audit of both pay requests.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Judge, Commissioners, we have no item under executive session unless the board wishes to entertain one.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you very much, Judge, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll be convening our regular meeting in about 5 to 10 minutes. to the regular Hidalgo County Commissioners Court meeting for today, November 27th, 2012. Present are Commissioner Palacios, Precinct 2, Flores, Precinct 3, Palacios, Precinct 4, and myself. We have a quorum. Please join us in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Townsend?
Dear Father in heaven, we're here today to ask for your help that we always make wise decisions. Help us to work together. Thank you for the rain that you sent. We know that we have a whole lot to be thankful for. Thank you for all the people who work so hard for this county. And also thank you for the freedom fighters who help us keep our freedom. And bless our country, dear Lord. Amen.
Any concerns with the consent agenda, sir?
Yes, Judge, I think there's only one item that,
What is it?
well, actually, there's a couple of items, Judge, on the consent agenda. Consent agenda item 4A and 5B and 70, I'm sorry, the three items. I would like to pull those for discussion.
So moved.
Second. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. All right, sir, go ahead.
Consent agenda item 4A, we recommend no action. The September 2012 monthly fee report that was submitted by the district clerk needs to be corrected. So we recommend no action on the particular item.
Is there anyone here from the clerk's office? Marty, you going to speak for him?
On who?
On the district clerk's issue?
4A.
For it?
No. No, I'm here on issue 70.
All right, then we will not take any action on 4A. Go ahead, sir, the next item.
5B, just a point of information, Judge, that is regarding membership dues. And according to the statute, membership dues are permissible if the statewide association has a minimum of 25% of political subdivisions as members. So just a point of information that for the elections department, we're going to require for them to send us a statement to that effect, and we'll pay that the membership dues that they're asking to be paid. Recommend approval of 5B with that condition.
All right, sir. Well, you're just telling us what the law states.
Right, yeah, and just pointing out that that we're going to need from the elections department a statement indicating that the statewide association has a membership of more than 25% of counties.
Can we approve it subject to?
Yes,
Correct,
subject
yeah,
to
that's what I'm
that.
saying.
It's very easy to do it. I
Yeah,
mean,
just
move
approve it,
for
yeah.
approval, subject.
Check.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
And on the 7E, just there's a typo there on the invoice amount. I don't know, you're going to,
Well, it's not a typo. I believe you all have calculated, and it's off by a penny. It should be 41 cents as opposed to 40. And my understanding was the first suggestion by this, and this is on D. Wilson construction payment application, was that perhaps just pay the invoice amount. And I would
Adjust it later?
And the vendor would probably forgive the penny. However, as Ms. Chavez was explaining, as this is just one payment, all progressive payments are going to have a variance. Your office did speak
Is
to
it
D. Wilson.
only one penny?
So
It's
I
one
don't think
penny.
we'll go to jail for one penny.
Well, I suggested they pay up just the 40 cents. However, what she pointed out to me was that as each payment starts to come in, there's going to be a wider variance. So D. Wilson agreed to resubmit with the
Yeah.
40
I would
one.
hate to delay paying the contractor because he's got a bunch of people I'm
But
sure he's got to take
They
care
are
of.
bringing to his attention that they will not process the payment without the revised bill.
Can we approve it
I
subject
have it
to-
on,
We go to the same thing like Commissioner Palacio is subject to, can we agree?
Right, yeah, just
correct.
approve it.
Oh, yes, it's just a point of information.
Just a point of
But
information.
I
So
just-
moved.
Okay, thank you. That's
Thank
all I
you.
have.
In favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Aye, motion carries. All right, under open forum, our first presenter is Ms. Billman.
Good morning. My name is Opal Billman. When Joe Billman died in 2003, his petition for divorce was still pending in the 275th District Court. It still is. Actions of the 275th District Court to that point in time were to appoint our son manager and to appoint a beneficiary for all of our community property. When Joe died, the 275th District Court had a court manager and a court beneficiary for our property. That's it. As the manager for the 275th District Court, our son filed with Secretary of State for a Billman Real Estate LTD and a Billman Enterprises LLC. The Secretary of State certified Jason's Shell Corporation and Holding Company. Upon my death, it will be the 275th District Court who will claim the Shell Corporation and Holding Company through the court's appointed manager and beneficiary, thereby claiming ownership of all of our community property. There is no sale or purchase in this transaction. There was no payment for private property to the owners or heirs. There's a word for that. It's called stealing. Texas law does not steal community property. Texas law is any property owned by Opal and Joe Billman, not included in the divorce settlement, remains owned equally by Opal and Joe Billman. There is no law requiring anyone to have a will or to include all of their property in their will if they have one. Property left out of a decedent's will is the residuary or left over or left out of the will property of the decedent. All property owned by a decedent at the time of his death is the estate of the decedent. Even if property is left out of his will, the decedent still owns it. It remains owned by the decedent as his estate. Texas state law passes the estate of the decedent to his heirs. The decedent's heirs own the estate of the decedent. That's Texas law. The 275th District Court would like to present now that the court abandoned the community property. The 275th District Court cannot abandon our private property, which our community property is. We hold valid deeds to this land. There's been no sale of any of it. And it is Opal Billman and the estate of Joe Billman who are still paying the taxes. There is another state law. In a divorce case, if one of the litigants die, the case must be dismissed. And right then, not 9 years, 2 unconstitutional trials, and 15 years of false imprisonment later. Thank you very much for your time.
Next presenter is, well, we have 6. Isadora Flores, Esther Carvajal, Irma Santos, Aaron, and I apologize, I cannot read the last name. Trapper, okay, yes, ma'am. Gail Penelos and Ann Millard. All of you are here to speak on school parks. All right, it'll be 15 minutes maximum. Yes. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you very much. We have been working around how to improve the possibilities of increasing physical activity with this group of people, and we want to talk also about school parks.
If you don't mind getting closer to that microphone, there you go.
Okay. It's very clear that as a health predictor, zip codes seem to matter more than genetic codes. You know, places like in Baltimore, in one part of the city, there's a life expectancy 62, in another it's 82. Places like in Cleveland, two neighborhoods within 8 miles is 64 and 90, 26-year difference, and only 8 miles apart. Obesity is costing America over $73 billion a year. The U.S. military rejected 140,000 recruits because too overweight. 25 million people in the U.S. have diabetes type 2, 27 million chronic heart disease, 68 million hypertension. 1 in 3 deaths from cancer are related to obesity, poor nutrition, or physical activity. In Hidalgo County, half of the people have less than high school education, which is twice the rate for Texas. Living under poverty, 35%. The median household income is $30,000. The mode of transportation is basically car, 74% alone, 19% with a passenger, so that's 93%. And so it's very clear that we need to develop a shared sense of urgency. We need to have a conversation and involve as many people as possible, and then move from talking to doing. For example, we doing a workshop with students, we ask them about how would they like their communities to be when you have your parents' age and you have children of your age. And people like Edgar, he said he wanted fewer people, fewer cars, and more people walking, and more people cycling. And then he drew places for pedestrians, for cyclists, for buses, and for cars. He's only 13, but he knows that if we mix pedestrians and cyclists, the pedestrian is going to get injured. If we mix cyclists with buses or cars, the cyclist is going to get injured. So he wants separate spaces. And then he also drew public parks and low buildings with street-level activity. So people say, oh, Gil, you know, this might be common sense, but maybe that's why common sense, they say, is the least common of the senses. Tomorrow, I'm going to be speaking at the Vista Summit on what can we do to improve health in Rio Grande Valley. And why? Because all of these things are related. It's about creating cities for people. This is about the built environment, and the built environment improves health for everyone. And when I talk about different cities, whether it's Copenhagen or New York, I want everyone to keep in mind that this is not about copy and paste, like we do in the computer. No, instead of copy and paste, is how to adapt and improve. Some cities, some images are from cities that are larger, some are smaller, some are wealthier, some are poorer, but it's about adapting and improving and creating cities for people. And cities for people is not so much about economics or engineering, but it's about how do we want to live, how do we want to live, and how is the living environment. And recreating cities for people has some ingredients. It's like if we're going to make pasta, then we get some ingredients, and then we make a nice pasta. The same thing, you know, cities for people have some ingredients. There are some spice cities and some spiceless cities, and people do not like to live in spiceless cities. So what are some of the ingredients? The first one is pedestrian. And I want to make emphasis that pedestrian is not only going to improve the facility, the health, but everyone is pedestrian. Every single trip begins and ends by walking. We walk to the car, we walk to public transit, we walk to the bikes, we walk to places. Everybody's pedestrian. And similar to pedestrian is cycling. I say that cycling is just a more efficient way of walking. Both we see people eye to eye, don't make any noise, are not motorized. But we're going to go further away. We could take public transit. But public transit will never pick us up in front of our house and drop us off in front of our destination. And then, so we need to have communities that are walkable and bikeable. And then, so in order, regardless of the size of the public transit, so we need to have public space, sidewalks, crosswalks, intersections that are safe. And then when we got all four of them, then we got sustainable mobility. People say, oh, Gil, you know, but in Texas the trips are very long. That's more a perception. Half of the trips in North America are within 20-minute bike ride. Almost 1 in 3 are within a 20-minute walk. That's why we say that walking, cycling, and public transit must be best friends. You know, when I said that in Hidalgo County, the average household income is, the median is $31,000, that means that of the $31,000, people are spending $16,000 in shelter and food. So after shelter and food, people have $15,000 left. Of those $15,000, when people have 2 cars, even if they're really old, they're spending $10,000 in their cars. So they got less than $100 per week, per household, for clothing, for entertainment, for education, for retirement. So creating communities where people could walk or bike or take public transit would be the best thing that we could do to improve the quality of life of everyone living under poverty. In my previous life, I was Commissioner of Parks and Sports in Bogota. I mentioned this about Bogota, not because I think Bogota is ideal or in any way, but it's because I think whenever I go, people say, oh, it's about the money. No, Bogota is even poorer. But nevertheless, while I was commissioner, I was on the other side. We did 5 metropolitan parks, over 250 neighborhood parks. And these are some of before and after some of these parks. They were some of the metropolitan ones. And also we did a lot of greenways, and I see that in Hidalgo County you have a lot of connectivity through drainage canals. So this is before and after. So there are opportunities. We built 174 miles of bikeways in 3 years and went from 28,000 to 350,000 people cycling. And these are some of the examples of bikeways. And one of the things to keep in mind is that it's very important to build a grid, because if you do only small pieces that don't link, people are not going to use it. A bikeway is nothing. In some of these places we're so poor that in Hidalgo County you might not even imagine in your worst nightmare. But we transform some of these places into this. Why is it so important to do nice pedestrian facilities, nice cycling? Because half of it is for safety, but the other half is because we need to tell people, you know, that walking and cycling is not something just for the poor, but it's something for everybody. And so then we built some of these facilities and started transforming neighborhoods. And it's also about being consistent, because if we say that pedestrians first and then cyclists and then cars, then we gotta be consistent along that. And ciclovia, what is the ciclovia? We open the streets on Sundays to the people, and we close some of the streets to cars, and all of a sudden we get over 1 million people coming out, and people doing physical activity, walking and cycling, and doing aerobics, and doing Tai Chi and yoga, and all kinds of activities. Currently, I'm executive director of 880 Cities, which is a not-for-profit based in Toronto. And why am I talking about walking or cycling or transit? Because it has many benefits to the community. Some of the benefits, we're going to have cleaner air. There is no doubt that walking, cycling, and transit has fewer gas emissions than any other mode. It improves mobility by itself. When people say, you know, in the Rio Grande Valley, everybody drives, no. Even in the wealthiest neighborhood, 30% of the people do not drive. Everyone under 17, they don't drive. About 30% of the over 65, they don't drive either. It also contributes to make transit better. When you make transit is never going to pick us up in front of our house and drop us off in our place of destination. So it has to be walkable or bikeable. It's good for economic development. Look, in Billings, Montana, this is the business, the private sector, the business saying trails are no longer viewed as a community amenity. They're essential infrastructure for business recruitment. Talented people move to Billings because of the trail system. And actually, Fortune magazine named Billings as the #1 small city in attracting business. So when we talk about the drainage canals and possibilities of doing more of those trails, you know, in Brantford, Ontario, the main street was going broke, every store was going closed. What did they do? They brought in a small school of a university, 400 students 5 years ago. Now they got over 4,000 students, and the whole economy has boomed. So now that you have the university, that is why it's so important also to keep the universities in the cities and support them. It makes us healthier. Because is this what the future looks like? You know? And the issue with obesity is that it has so many concerns: heart attacks, respiratory problems, depression, anxiety, and so on. You know, why am I talking about this? I'm walking and cycling because in the cities where walking or biking is a normal part of everyday life, the rates of obesity are very low, as well as when people take public transit. And the reality is that the US and Canada are way down in the list of the countries that walk or bike, and are on the top of the list, the US and Mexico, of the overweight or obese. The obesity in the US is at 35%, and if we don't do anything about it, it's going to be 44% by 2030. And when people say it's always been like this, it's not always been like this. Just 35 years ago, in 1976, it was only 12% in men, and now it's over 33% in women from 17 to 36. Visually, this is how it's been changed. And again, the issue is the problems. You know, diabetes and obesity go hand in hand. It's a perfect correlation. So it's really problematic. And the issue is we either change what we eat or we do more exercise. If we just did 150 minutes per week, that's only half an hour a day. All of a sudden, we could improve all of these health issues. So physical activity is the wonder drug, says the director of the CDC in Atlanta. So I guess all over the world, we should be giving a gift to anybody that walks or bikes or takes public transit. But again, I know that we don't have many resources to do capital investments, but also we have an urgency to act now. What assets do we have? Do we have schools? We got streets, we got libraries, we have community centers, we have city halls. I'm just going to focus on two: streets and schools. And I mean, we got to have parks within walking distance, but I'll go back to that in a minute. We got to slow down the speed. All the neighborhood streets should be 20 miles an hour or less. Why 20 miles an hour? Because if a car hits you at 20 miles an hour, there's only 5% probability that it's going to kill you. If it hits you at 40 miles an hour, there's going to be over 80% probability. And in the US, over 50,000 people get hit by cars every year. So this is something that is very, very important. Also, we want people to walk. The distance not only have to be short, but it has to be an enjoyable walk. So, second, and then we also got to build a network of protected bikeways. A bikeway is nothing. If it doesn't connect origin and destination, we're not going to go anywhere. So just painting lines is not going to be enough, because painting lines, the cars do not respect that. This is Christchurch, this is Kentucky, this is Toronto. The reality is that the only thing you have between you and a car is a line you go on the sidewalk. So we need a grid of permanent interconnected bikeways. And if for whatever reason the city doesn't have the funds or the political will to do it permanent, okay, you can do it temporary for 2 or 3 year pilot projects. As long as it's a grid, as long as it's interconnected. So, because when you have a line, all of a sudden the cars go in. The other day we did an experiment. We just put some plastic cups, and all of a sudden we didn't have any. And any cars coming in. So we need to have some kind of physical separation in order to make it work. And when I said that we need parks within walking distance, that's when we started thinking about the schools. The schools have two uses: one during the school hour and one after hours, on weekends, on holidays, on summers.
Like we you have 1 minute.
Okay, then let me skip to this. Okay, obviously we don't have enough parks in Hidalgo County, or as an example, the city of Edinburgh. So what are some of the possibilities? One of the possibilities is to think of the schools. We have 31 elementary schools, 6 middle schools, 4 high schools. So all of a sudden, if we started thinking of the schools not only as schools, but as school parks, all of a sudden we could really have parks within walking distance of everybody. So whether the parks are important, there are some quantitative reasons and some qualitative. And when I start thinking of the school parks, all the reasons why parks are important meet the same definition of the school parks. So I think we've been doing a lot of research on areas across the US. Even one of the best ones is in Houston, Spark, which is an NGO. So I think that if we encourage, obviously there are some barriers, but we gotta find solutions to the problems and not problems to the solutions. I think that being able to use the schools across the Hidalgo County to get people to be more physically active would be something really fantastic. And I encourage you to set that as a policy at the county level.
Thank you, sir. We've already taken up the 15 minutes. All right. We cannot involve ourselves in discussion, that's why we're not commenting. All right, under item 6A.
Good morning, Judge Commissioners. On 6A, we're actually going to table for next week. There's some legal language that we need to work out with.
Judge, there'll be no
Both
action.
1 and 2?
Yes.
For the record, there'll be no action.
Yeah.
All right. Under item 6B, appointment of a board member to the South Texas Independent School District. We had a resignation, and I have appointed a young lady who's here in the audience, Ms. Graciela Camargo. Ms. Camargo, would you step forward? Ms. Camargo is a lifelong educator. She was an elementary teacher, a counselor, a special education counselor, and assistant principal. By the way, these positions of assistant principal, special ed counselor, dean of students, and principal, again, have all been at the South Texas Independent School District. She's very knowledgeable about the workings of the district and what it has taken to make that district what it is today. At this time, I just want to make it known and announce that we're appointing Ms. Graciela Camargo to the position of Board of Trustee of the South Texas Independent School District. Commissioner, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Would you care to make a statement, Ms. Camargo?
Well, I just want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. I have, like you just said, Judge, I've been with the South Texas District since 1987, both as an administrator and since 2003 as chair of the foundation board. And being appointed to the South Texas ISD School Board is just a pinnacle in my life. And I just want to really tell you that I appreciate everything and that I will do my best and make you proud.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, next item is discussion and status update regarding the activities of the Commuter Rail Board. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Judge Jim Edge, Vice Chairman of Hidalgo County Commuter Rail, speaking on behalf of the Rail Board and our year-end report. May it please the Commissioners Court and members of the Hidalgo County Commuter Rail desire to report on the progress that's been made in this past year and to lay out our future plans for the rail district. At present, the Rio Grande Valley is the fourth largest population center in the state of Texas. It is on par to continue a growth rate of 36% over the course of the next 10 years. The Valley has the fastest growing population in the whole of the state. It is a population of immigrants and young people seeking a better life that is offered here in our area. However, it is also the only major metropolitan area in the state that lacks a comprehensive multimodal transportation system to move people across our valley. The lack of such a system puts future economic development at risk since the area does not offer alternative modes of transportation for all segments of our population. The success of retail development, education, and overall business prospects in the near future is limited due to the lack of comprehensive system to move people by modes other than personal vehicles. The results from our local public transit operators show, however, a tremendous and encouraging statistic that have shown in the last year a tremendous growth in ridership in each of the systems, averaging about 150%. Some of this is due to new equipment and new routes, but we need to continue to work because we have limited routes and limited equipment to reach and cover all the geographical areas, and need for consolidation of schedules to move people to the center core to improve efficiency. The focus on the future of the federal funding of transportation is set on the concept of sustainable communities. In a nutshell, the potential for funding for the development of cities and regions will shift from urban sprawl to more condensed city planning and development that encourages mixed developments of commercial and residential communities that are existing side by side. Coinciding with this sustainable developments are the push to create affordable housing inside city limits and to foster opportunities for low and middle income families, the opportunity to reside within city limits closer to employment and educational prospects. The federal government is also pursuing an agenda of limiting future funding for new construction or repair of roadways for use by personal vehicles. It's trending down over the coming years in favor of multimodal transport. There's a growing concern about the environmental impact of fossil fuels and the cost to the nation of continued importation of oil. The failure of local governments to plan and implement for these pending changes of direction from traditional road funding will have severe consequences on the population served by these entities. It is in recognition of these changing funding and development patterns that the implemented by the federal government makes it important for us to establish a transit planning that makes use of alternative modes of transportation in conjunction with the extended and continued roadbed system. Feasibility study commissioned by the Hidalgo County Rail District in 2010 was completed in the fall of 2011. In the opening months of this year, that study was disseminated to the cities of Hidalgo County and to this commission. The study concluded that the rail system, in tandem with existing bus lines, constitutes a viable system for the future of the county. The bus lines reaching into the lower density areas of the county will feed passengers into the center core system. It is estimated from the study that ridership upon full completion and operation of the rail system will see a projected 13,000 riders per day. And that's based on Federal Transportation Administration models used by LAN, our consultant. The ridership figures on daily operation put our system in the range as between Dallas-Fort Worth TRE line and Washington, D.C. lines. Now, the next step in the evolution of our transportation is to seek grants from the federal government for a second study called alternative analysis. This is part of the process that is involved in seeking funding from the federal government. Each of these steps is required in that process. This is an in-depth study of engineering assessments, safety analysis, evaluation of existing transportation assets in the area. The federal government requires this before granting New START funding from the federal government. This is also to provide a more in-depth analysis of financial prospects for the rail system long term. The Rail Board is planning to work and to meet those requirements in the application process in the coming year. Since we don't know for certain how long this process will take, this is our primary objective in the near term. Reporting in conferences, recently a Sustainable Communities Conference and also the Border to Border Conference brought to light some exciting innovation in commuter rail systems across the country. In the city of Salt Lake City, the state of Vermont, the city of El Paso, and Denver, Colorado have demonstrated a model for developing enterprise zones in conjunction with the rail station. What is most encouraging about this information is the development of jobs in these enterprise zones from new businesses that are encouraged to develop within the radius of the train station. The City of Houston is also currently underway to foster new growth of businesses around their train stations. The enterprise zones offer investors an opportunity to build equity in targeted areas of development. In the upcoming state legislature, we're going to be working with our local representatives to create favorable legislation of this type for the Valley so that we can pursue this type of development. It is also encouraging if we look offshore to Japan and England, in Tokyo and Osaka and Sheffield, England. They offer a different model from what is traditional in our American transportation. It is a model based on business and profitability. Running the systems not just as a service as is typical at the cost of the public, but to make the systems answerable in terms of creating and generating funding for their operation. Part of what we want to do is utilize funding that comes from these enterprise zones to offset, recognizing that in this day and age, it is unpopular to have another hike in expenses and tax burden upon the public. So what we seek to do in these enterprise zones is to create alternative forms of revenue streams for the commuter system to help it pay for itself. In view of the accomplishments of the last 4 years, the Hidalgo County Commuter Rail District has made major strides towards the future economic development of our region. The board members have had limited support, with the one exception of the support from interlocal agreements from this body, which have been very helpful, and the support that we've received from the judge's office. But the cost of attending meetings and conferences has been borne by members of the rail district from their own pocket and their own funds. It is a board that is dedicated to service for this community. The board has served the citizens with devotion by seeking what is best for the county and for its people. We seek to continue to move forward to provide service that will complement the quality of life that we enjoy here in the Valley. It is a task of vision for our people here. It's not an easy task. There are some that are short-sighted and want to kill economic progress for this community. That would be very dire, because it hits the lowest income people in our area. It also hurts moderate income people. We desire to pursue a development of an enterprise model that puts our stations, employing in and around those stations approximately 100 people with businesses that would be developed. That is 11 stations. We're talking about just in and around the railroad itself, 1,100 people within these zones. Possibly more with Edinburgh and San Juan looking at building hotels adjacent to the stations. There will be a new boom for business and tourism in our valley, since people will be able to use the transit system to get to venues and events that are uniquely representative of the best of our region and the people have to offer. It is all that is required is for us as a people here in the valley, people who love the valley, to come forward and to work and to make this vision a possible reality. That is our report for you this day.
I noticed you have a gentleman there with you, one of the board members.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Judge.
Good morning, Mr. Tijerina.
How you doing?
And another board member is present in the audience, I believe, Mr. Travers.
Yes, sir.
And this I guess, discussion was prompted by a conversation or conversations that Mr. Travers has had with various members of the court. And he felt, well, he was very, well, I don't want to use the word negative, but he didn't really feel like the rail system was a practical thing to be working on here at the county at this time.
Judge, I heard the word profit when you mentioned Japan. How many of those companies have actually profited in the United States?
When you look at the rail and the way that they're structured, there's only a handful of transit companies in the United States that are making profit. It is primarily in the way that they are structured. We are looking for models for this transit system that do not follow the tradition of subsidy by local governments. We're trying to reinvent the whole concept of the finance for this rail system to make it self-supporting. So if you look at the averages, no, they're not very...
My question is, can you name me a couple of cities or that have profit on this? Because I remember 3, 4 years ago, there was a bailout on Amtrak or something like that, from Florida or somewhere. I remember hearing it on the news years ago.
Yes, sir, if you'll give me just a moment. First is Yorktown Transit Authority. They experienced, in the year 2010, 108% profit.
What's the population there?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What is the population in that city, in that county or whatever?
I don't have those figures with me. The second one is the City of Lebanon, which experienced a 93% profitability. The next one is York County Transportation. They had 95%. The University of Georgia Transportation System, excuse me if I get this right, 141%. Orange County Transportation.
Are those small ones or what? Small transportation?
These are from the National Transit Database.
Can I ask a question? The initial study that land was hired for, were federal dollars used, what was the total?
The total that was allowed for was $500,000. We negotiated with LAN for $426,000. The remainder of those funds were turned back over to the county for use in other projects in the county.
Okay, question number 2, you're saying you're seeking for a second grant to do an additional study?
Yes, sir. This is part of the process with the federal government. You do a feasibility study first, and this is part of their process. The second one is an alternative analysis, which is a more in-depth. Once you've determined that it is a feasible project, you then have to go in more depth to do engineering analysis and financial analysis.
So how much are we asking the federal government for the second study?
We have not completed the process yet. I have figures anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million.
So in total, 1.5 for studies?
Yes, sir. And again, this is the part of the process. This is not what we're trying to do, but the federal government requires these studies to move forward.
Another question I had. We can't just dissolve this commuter railroad.
That's correct.
No, sir.
Right, we can't. And I guess my real question was not how many of this have made profit? How many have failed?
To my knowledge, none have failed.
None of them?
Now, there are several that have faced severe financial trouble. And again, this is what we're trying to avoid. From the very beginning, in our mission statement, we said we wanted to be self-sustaining. And it has been our goal not to be a subsidized transit project. Now, I realize that there are a lot of people who think that that's not possible. But yet, there are models elsewhere where they have done it and done it successfully.
Okay, another question is, if this becomes a reality, where are we going to get the money to build this?
Part of the money is going to come from federal funding. Part of it is going to have to come from state funding. Part of it is going to have to come from local funding. But we also want to look at partnerships with public-private so that we can involve developers in the process, especially with our enterprise zones.
Because I understand we're having a lot of trouble with the RMA for the boot right now, Judge, and I think that's, you know, I guess if we really want to help the RMA, we're going to have to sell some bonds or do something about it. And if this requires selling more bonds, then we just sold some for the drainage district. I mean, it's going to be one of those things that by the time we know, we're going to owe more than what we even bring in.
I don't have a good answer for you that at this time because we don't know yet the final tab. I do know that by making application to the federal government, these studies will be funded by Federal Transportation Authority.
You indicated you had a primary objective in the near future, and I didn't pick up on what that was.
Our primary objective is to make the application for the alternative analysis. It's a long application process that we're working with on the board. Following that, we will seek New Start funding once we're received a favorable rating on the alternative analysis. Again, this is a sequence of steps that are involved in this process. Personally, I'd love to be able to say, let's just go and let's get funding and go forward. But this is the government process, and we've learned that we have to follow in order to be a part of the system.
All right, and time-wise, on the timetable, what are we looking at as far as completing the application and submission of the grant? And
we're going to be working in the first part of the year to complete that application process. When we seek funding, we will then secure through a bidding process contractors to do the alternative analysis study. And again, one of the things that we've done, as I mentioned earlier, we negotiated and brought down the cost of our initial study some $76,000, feeling that it was not appropriate to spend all the taxpayers' money when we could get the job done at a lower cost. We're very cost conscious as we move forward.
That money was returned to the feds, right?
We returned it back over to you all. I don't know what happened to the funds after that. I just know that it was used or turned back over to the county for use in some other transportation-related process. I would not be able to answer that for you.
All right, I guess we can check on it.
Yeah, Sergio.
Sergio,
We have one other question, Commissioner. Sergio, do you want to address that? What happened to that 76,000 or whatever it was?
Those funds were returned back to the program, and we used those for more energy efficiency lighting projects throughout the county. So those were put back to some of the other scope of work that we had included in the grant.
It was our desire, Judge, that we be the best stewards possible of those funding. And I'm glad to hear that it was put to good use for the benefit of the county.
So this next grant application is going to be through the commuter rail, or is it going to go through Hidalgo County?
We'll be petitioning as a Hidalgo County commuter rail.
Yeah, I've seen many studies, and I'm just going to talk abroad about these studies in preparation. Hopefully, I mean, the whole idea of doing studies is to take something that's in theoretical form to make it as practical as possible. When you talk about successful models on the commuter rail throughout the United States, throughout the world, every community has significant variables or differences, which, you know, some of these systems are beneficial to those communities. I'm still not very optimistic at this point in time that we would demand the need for it, but at the same time, you don't know if you don't do your due diligence to see the facts of the matter. So
exactly right, sir. And again, we're looking at a different model in terms of how we operate. Very sensitive to the fact that, as you said, we've got bond issues going out elsewhere and trying to build roads. One of the things, though, that is becoming very clear, the funding available for lanes of new highway or repair of new highway is getting very, very short and very, very tight. I believe we have a meeting with the MPO TAC a little bit later on to deal with that very issue. So we need to be able to look at alternative modes of transportation. The benefit here also is that we're going to be able to better serve our lower income families across the valley. By moving and concentrating people into a central line, which another thing to consider too, we don't have to go and build right away. We're not faced with the challenge of an environmental impact study, which is another study that costs a great deal of money. We're doing everything we can in the most cost-effective manner in terms of our planning. But we want to be able to serve all levels of society. Not to have a comprehensive transportation system really adversely affects the poor in our county and the moderate income families. We need to bring them into better economic viability. I have in my pocket, I just thought I'd share with you, whenever I get around the country, I try to ride on transportation systems. In October, I had the opportunity to ride on MARTA. My daughter and son-in-law just moved to the Atlanta area. And we're very excited. We went to meet my son-in-law in downtown Atlanta. He works right at the core or the center of the city. We got on a MARTA line at Marietta and rode all the way into the core of the city. He does this every day. At a cost of 50% in terms of gas, wear and tear on his vehicle, because the commute from where he lives would be over 2 hours. He can ride the train and be there in an hour. During that time, he can read, he can plan his day. He's a programmer, so he can be looking at alternatives for his work during the course of the day, or just plain relax without having to look at traffic bumper to bumper. One of the costs is, I was reading through some material just yesterday that is not always associated, is the reduction costs for personal vehicles. Right now, I think, and I think I'm right, it's 55 cents per mile that the federal government allows for us to take for business travel. He's able to cut his cost by 50% by taking the train. And that includes the buying of the pass, his parking, and to and from the 5 miles that he travels from his home to the station. This is an alternative that makes available some of the things that we saw in the last presentation possible. Think of our students in Pan Am. Parking is really at a premium. My wife works there, and so she has to battle for a parking space every day. If we can reduce that traffic by multimodal system, allowing the students from across the valley put their bicycle on the train. When they get off the train at the station that'll be built here in Edinburgh, just a couple of blocks over, they can then ride to their classes and then back on. There won't be the need for additional parking. So there are a lot of advantages here. Some of our income streams would be also the ability to charge for parking at the stations.
Yes.
We're looking at all of these things.
I've got one question.
Yes, sir.
Maybe it's not even for you or not, but how much is it per mile to build a railroad?
How much is it per mile?
Yeah.
Good question. It's about $1.6 million, but for...
No, per mile.
Yeah, $1.6 million per mile. But compare
How many miles
that...
are we talking about?
Well, let me make the comparison. When you build highway construction, it's at $5.5 million per mile. So which is the best stewardship of the public's money? To increase ridership and provide services for our people.
So you're talking about 100 miles from Brownsville to maybe Mission, más o menos 80?
Right now, we don't have a sister agency in Cameron County, but eventually, yes. But we're using existing railroad.
How much money is that?
Existing right-of-way.
100 what? No, he says, how much per mile did you say it was?
1.6 versus 5.5 for maintenance and construction of new road bed for cars.
Mr. Edge, you mentioned that you're using existing right-of-way.
Yes, sir.
Does that discount that existing right-of-way, or 1.6?
That is projected, and those figures come from Rio Grande switching, what it would take to raise the level of track. Currently, our track is at level 1 by federal standards, maximum speed of 10 miles an hour. We're projecting for engineering safety to raise that level to level 5. And so what that means is that we would have to go in and rebuild the roadway, the road bed, secure the rails with better ties. If you've ever had the chance to walk, even in our city of Mercedes, some of those ties are pretty rotten and leaving holes in the ground. So there's a lot of improvement. The other thing that we need to consider, we have 322 road crossings, rail and road. Only a fraction of those are protected by lights or gates. We have a tremendous safety problem. I know a judge spoke to me some time ago about a concern he has with safety for our people here in Hidalgo County with trains running. We're looking at improving the safety of our people by improving these roadways and putting proper gates and safety measures in.
Any other questions?
Well, I, for one, want to commend you for your efforts, and the entire board, actually, for opening our eyes to cost and the efforts of putting this program forth. I do see this happening in the future, maybe not the immediate future, but I want to commend you for your vision and your board's vision to the actual transit program that would affect our Hidalgo County and the entire Rio Grande Valley. I think this is something that cannot be ignored, and this is something that will come in the future. It's just that we need to plan to get there, and how we're going to get there is another issue. Is what the funding is going to cost, how you're going to attain the funding. But what we should not do is wait till the last minute and try to fund this project all at once. I think this it's up to the governing board, maybe not only in Hidalgo County, but also to get all our cities involved as well and try to participate, and maybe each community allocate a little bit of their funding. Maybe they can allocate a little funding annually to try to get there someday. Because we've always been looking at this in a reactionary mode. Okay, we need $300 million. How are we going to get it today? We definitely need to plan for the future. So I commend all the board members for their effort.
We thank you, Commissioner, and your support has been very valuable to us and encouragement. The key for us right now is we have roadway available, we have right-of-way available. When you look at the costs of other systems around the country, they've had to go and purchase that right-of-way. And when they purchase right-of-way, then it gets involved in environmental impact studies, and you start seeing the cost escalate very rapidly. Today, we have basically an open field system where we can go and we can start building and then develop along the rail line. One of the things that has been seen in Denver and in Salt Lake City is that once the rail was established, communities started developing around the rail to take advantage of the process and the availability.
I really think, Mr. Edge, it would behoove all the communities to get involved and support this program and participate financially, because I'm sure that cities like Weslaco or Mercedes would want people from Brownsville to come visit their centers, their outlets, and their shops and spend some of their monies in other cities.
Well, I think
it would make it easier.
I think it'd be wonderful. And think about just having raised kids out of the college age. Think about our kids that come down for spring break to South Padre. If they wouldn't have to drive on roadways, they could devote themselves to having a good time, but being safe on a rail or public transit system as they go from the airport to the offshore. What a wonderful thing not to have to call parents. I've been a police chaplain, and the worst thing in the world is to call up somebody and say, I'm very sorry to report to you that we've lost your son or daughter. Yeah. And it's a safety issue, it's an economic issue, it's an issue for our future.
And I think it is a future. I may not be around to see this, but it's definitely in the future.
Well, hopefully we'll have you around for a long time, Commissioner.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your presentation, gentlemen. Next item number 7. Mr. Guerra.
Thank you, Judge.
Anything under 7A?
No, Judge, actually, item 7A, 1 and 2, there's no action today. Item 7B, there's no update from the last update we gave. The last item I have under 7C was the discussion we had last week, so it's formally on the agenda, is the approval of acceptance documents from Rantec Building Systems, Inc. for modular buildings and authority for the executive officer to sign the forms. That was that punch list that I talked about last week. A spout here, a change of a door here and there. We've gone through the punch list. They have complied, and so we're asking, or I'm asking approval of the acceptance documents for Rantec Building Systems.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Have they been corrected?
Yes, sir. They were corrected as of last week, but we, unfortunately, since it was not on the agenda.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Aye, motion carries.
Thank you, Judge, Commissioners.
Next item, sir.
Judge, there is no discussion under the Indigent Healthcare Program today. I don't know if...
Eddie's outside.
Oh, Eddie is outside. I saw him out there.
Oh, he's outside the door.
I do believe he does have something on the 11 waiver documents. Mr. Olivares, I informed the court that there was nothing discussed under the indigent healthcare, but there was on the 1115 waiver documents?
No, there isn't anything on 1115
Okay.
waiver,
Oh.
and so A and B, I'm good, sir, unless there's any questions or concerns.
No, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item 9, our HIDA task force.
Yes, Judge, this is a discussion and consideration, and this is to accept a memorandum of understanding between the county and the Hidalgo County HIDA Task Force. I believe, do you have the?
It's for janitorial services.
Right.
At a cost of $520 a month.
It's our annual.
Recommend approval.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, sir. Item 10. We're going to move on this for another week. We haven't had an opportunity to meet, at least I haven't, with Mr. Vela.
Okay.
No action, Judge?
Item 11, our budget office.
Thank you, sir.
Judge Commissioner Sergio Cruz, Department of Budget Management. Item 11A is discussion, consideration, and approval of exiting elected official expenditure policy. Local Government Code Section 130.908 requires Commissioners Court to approve all expenditures for an exiting elected official above an amount that is set by Commissioners Court. This policy would set an amount for 3 different categories. The first category would be for any maintenance and operation costs, excluding utilities. The second one would be setting a limit for utilities, including water, electricity, phone, the landline, gas and sewage. And then also the third one would be the amount for travel expenditures for the exiting elected official. The auditor has informed me that if we do not pass this policy regarding this, he would have to bring all expenditures to Commissioners Court for approval before he actually issues checks. So this is basically just setting a cap. Any expenditure above this cap would have to be brought to Commissioners Court before the auditor would issue payment.
Anything that's over budget is what you're saying?
Anything that would be over the amount that is being set via this policy would have to be brought to Commissioners Court. We did break out the regular maintenance operation and the utilities because utilities are necessary expenditures. We're recommending that we have a cap of at least $5,000 for those expenditures so that there's no delay in processing payment for utilities.
I don't have a problem with it, but I just want to know, how long has this policy been in effect?
This policy has not been in effect. This is the first time we would bring this policy to Commissioners Court.
So where was it created? Where was it created?
Well, there's a, Commissioner, there's a...
There's a statute that requires...
That's what I'm saying. Where was it created?
The statute was passed in 2003.
Okay.
Just that it has not been followed by the county, perhaps.
That is correct.
So we've not adopted it, is what you're saying?
We had not adopted a policy, and however, I was advised by the county auditor that now that he has been advised of the statute, that he would not be able to issue payment unless the policy is approved by Commissioners Court. For item 1, for the regular capital...
Can I ask about the
Yes, sir.
5,000? Is it a total of 5, or is it 5 on every request, or how's that going to work?
I would recommend there be 5 for every request. Usually, the largest line item on the utility side is going to be electricity. There are times, especially during the summer month, and that we have expenditures up to $3,000 per program, whether it be the road administration program or the parks program that we have, or the CRCs and the sanitation program. I've looked at prior expenditures during this year. I saw that one of the highest ones was about $3,000. So I'm just recommending a higher amount on that amount so that we don't have any loss of of utility services.
Now, this is for exiting elected officials only.
Yes, sir, for exiting elected officials
Right.
only.
So,
Okay.
once you lose an election or you're on your way out, that's when it comes to
So that was my
play.
next question. So it's applied right after the general or the primary, or, I mean? if
Should
there's
be
not
after
a-
the general.
After the general, after you canvass the results
general.
of the general election.
Well, if you're not renominated during the March election, then it would apply to you at that point. If you're not reelected during the November election, then it would be effective at that point as well. For example, Mr. Barrera did not run during this election cycle, so it would have applied to his office, I think, beginning since
March,
the March election.
No, I think you're correct.
Primary or
The-
election.
The statute does say whether, if you're not renominated or reelected.
Yes, sir. For the regular maintenance and operation category, yes, sir.
If there's a budget for a department, as long as you spend the money within the budget, why do you need a cap on it?
Commissioner, I think it has to be based on an invoice, not so much for
Yes.
anything over the budget.
Just to stop an elected official, but to go ballistic or something, is that what it is?
That might have been the intent of the statute at that time. I know Collin County passed a similar policy 2 weeks ago. They had relatively very small allowances. There was $500 for regular maintenance and operations and $1 for travel. I think that might be a little too limiting, and we'll end up essentially bringing all items to court. So I don't think we should set the limits that low. I would recommend anywhere between $1,000 to $1,500 for regular maintenance and operation expenditures, and anywhere between $100 to $500 for travel of the elected official.
On travel, I agree with the $1. And here's the reason, $1.
How much of money?
$1.
Man, not
One
gonna
cent
go
more
very
than,
far.
1 cent more than 99 cents. Here's the reason, Judge, hear me out, please. County funds can only be spent if there's a public purpose, right? So let's suppose we have an incumbent that lost the election. That individual could travel the whole month prior to leaving office. In my opinion, there's a question of whether or not there's a public purpose being served, because following the next month, the individual is not going to be no longer a elected officer. So the county is not going to get any benefit from the training that someone is going to receive for the last month of the term.
Well, I
Judge.
disagree with you on that, because the elected official is here to the end of his term, and how it impacts to the end of his term is another issue. You may think it's irrelevant, he's only got 1 month left and he shouldn't be traveling. It's all, when an elected official travels, he goes to educational sessions and allows him to make better decisions with issues that affect his precinct and the county.
Correct.
So the official is elected to the last day of office. So that's my respects to that. I disagree with what you're saying.
Well, Judge and Commissioners, I think the intent, obviously, we all agree with the intent is to prevent, obviously, some excess spending, gross spending on something that's not necessary. I do agree with Commissioner that we are elected to serve the term, and the term will end the last day of the fourth year, whatever it is. It's kind of hard to be too strict on it. That's why, in all those categories, I'll agree, so as long as it's within reason. We're just trying to filter the gross excess. And I couldn't agree with you more, we do need that policy. Just as long as it's not one of those things where it's going to be too stringent, that everything's going to come to Commissioner's Court, which I have no problem. If I'm in the equation, I have no problem defending any expenditure that I'm asking for. I have no problem with that.
Anybody ever is going to
Yeah.
not be in that situation. We need more time to review this and bring it back next week?
I would recommend that we dissect it.
You
so
brought
that
up
we-
some issues, basically, that you weren't
Yeah,
comfortable with.
I think if you want to set a little bit higher limits until we see make sure we don't make it too strict. However, if we don't approve a policy, then the auditor will not issue any payments, I believe.
What are the amounts you're recommending for number one?
I was recommending at least 1,500 for
And
item one.
For number two is 5,000?
For number two was 5,000.
And number three?
And number three, anywhere between $100 to $500, maybe $500. And number 3 applies only to the elected official, not to his staff. His staff obviously will remain, but it only applies to the elected official himself.
Well, I mean, you've got the same issue with staff. I mean, if it's one of these exempt people that you know is not going to survive, I mean, isn't that the practical effect of it?
Yes. Well, it could very well happen that it is one of the exempt officials. We can make it applicable to the elected official and his 2 appointed staff members.
Non-exempt.
Yeah.
The exempt from civil service, is that what you were saying?
Yes. But my recommendation would have been the 1,500 for 1, 5,000 for number 2, and 500 for number 3.
So can you repeat again for the general public? Number 1 is what?
Is for any maintenance and operation category.
M&O.
M&O expenditures. Number 2 is for
What is
utilities
that amount
only,
you're suggesting there?
1,500.
1,500.
Those are just any expenditures other than utilities.
Okay, and number 3 is travel?
Number 3 is travel
Let me
of
ask you,
the,
what about capital outlay projects that you have on the books?
Isn't that a separate issue?
those are actually included in item 1.
They're budgeted items, no?
Those are actually included in item 1 as part of the maintenance and operation, including whether it's in the operating category or the capital outlay category.
So engineering.
I just want to make sure we do
Yes.
this right.
And all of those come to court
Yeah, 'cause it's gonna affect
anyways for
it.
Commissioners Court whenever we do a work authorization. So those types of expenditures do come to court regardless.
All engineering, all professional services, they all come to the court?
They all come to the court as a work authorization, I believe.
Well, it's still not a you just defend it with the court.
Yes, sir.
I think that's what we should do every week.
That wouldn't be right. Just give you some guidance.
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with the limits at this point.
And we can come back if once we do, we go through this cycle and see that those limits are perhaps too stringent, we can come back and amend those as well, up or down.
So you're suggesting 1,500 on number 1, and what was number 2?
5,000.
Number 2, 5,000.
And that's for
Okay, then.
facilities, right?
If
For
there's no
utilities, yes.
objection, I'd entertain a motion to approve
So moved.
the amounts as suggested by the auditor, by the budget officer.
Second.
So it's 15, 5, and what, said it?
500.
And 500.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Item 11B is a request for reimbursement for Mr. Joe Jackson for the purchase of fuel in the amount of $43.
Move for approval?
Second.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Item 11C is approval to submit the Texas Vine reimbursement maintenance invoice in the amount of $7,293.50. This is for the first quarter, with authority for the judge to sign any required documents.
Move for approval?
Second.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Let me ask a question.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, the way the commissioners work, road and bridge and all that, if you hire people, do they have to, does their hiring have to be approved by the court?
No, sir.
Currently, no.
Not the person,
No,
but the position.
not the person. The position would need to be approved. However, the person
During the
can,
budget process, those slots are approved.
yes.
Yeah, the slots
And-
are.
Right, and all we do is fill the slots.
Do you
If there's
think we
any
need a policy
vacancies-
to address that issue
I
in
don't-
line with what we just did?
I don't believe the statute allow for that.
How
for-
about-
For court to
well,
have
I
that
mean-
type of policy.
We can have a county policy.
Judge, I know where you're going with this. You're talking about like vacancies that.
Right,
that-
feeling, you're the outgoing person, just going out there and filling out everything that's available and not allowing the incoming person an opportunity to make his own selections or her own selection.
Judge, I agree with you. I think vacancies
Well, keep
should
in mind that
come.
whatever
I'm unaware of any
positions,
statute that would allow for that. However, I would have to visit with legal counsel on that.
Yeah, but no, it might pose a legal issue, Judge, for exceeding authority, because I think every elected official has the same sphere of authority. So there's what the AG has opined, that you cannot tell an elected official how to run his or her office.
Sergio, why don't you talk to each of the commissioners and my office individually and come up with a proposal as to how we can address that to avoid that from happening.
Yes, sir.
And we'll take it up maybe, well, whenever you're ready.
For discussion, and then we can.
Okay, sir.
Because you might want to visit with legal.
I'll visit with legal
Make
as
sure
well,
that's
just to make sure that the court does have that authority.
All right, sir. Where are we at?
Item 11D is
Just
approval.
keep in mind, gentlemen, that the auditor does have a good point, that the elected official does have the authority to the last day he serves office, to run his precinct the way he sees fit. Now, if there's any issues and you think that the elected official is doing wrong, well, then you can bring it for discussion.
Well, we try to avoid, like, I tend to agree with the judge on this. We need something in place that would give us some guidance, that be some kind of a hiring freeze, 90 days prior to leaving office.
And
That's to
if there's
avoid-
new employees brought on, there's a probationary period as well that is followed. So,
I know.
anyway, we'll meet with Sergio on a one-on-one basis.
Legal does have a position on it. I don't know, Steve, you want to state it for the record?
Without a statute, you need a statute to be able to do that, to restrict an elected official from doing that. And without a statute, you cannot restrict the elected official. He's still in office until the last day of his term, or until his successor is elected and qualified.
Well, in the past, Steve, we had a situation where because of the budget constraints or situation, we have a hiring freeze. How come we can do that and we can't do it over here?
You can do a hiring freeze for the entire county. You just can't single out one elected official to do the hiring freeze on.
Well, that's
Commissioner-
one way skin can't.
If I can elaborate a little bit more on that, even on the hiring freeze, we have it mandatory hiring freeze for commissioners' court departments. However, for elected officials, it's only a recommendation to the elected official, and it's not actually a
Well,
mandatory.
we should discuss that during the budget process as well. You know, if you're going to go ahead and enforce a hiring freeze per precinct, you discuss that during budget, because you know what you want to do next year.
Yes.
Well,
I think what
go ahead and
Sergio's
talk
saying
to
that
all
for
of us.
elected officials only-
Yes, sir. I'll make sure and visit with each of the commissioners and your office individually, and then also
All right,
with the legal counsel. Item 11D is approval of resolution authorizing the submittal of an application for the 2013 Indigent Defense Formula Grant with authority for the county judge to sign the required documents. Move for approval.
Need a second? Those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Item 11E is approval of certification of revenues as certified by the county auditor and appropriation of those funds into the Precinct 3 Mile 1 South Road in the amount of $23,203.50 for road improvements to Mile 1 South Road.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
And that was item E1, A, and B. Item E2, A, and B is approval of certification of revenues as certified by the county auditor and appropriation of those funds for the Precinct 1 Drainage Improvement Project, Program 52, in the amount of $21,711.40. And these are for payroll reimbursements. Move for approval.
Need a second?
Second.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Judge Commissioners.
All right. Next item, purchasing.
Yes, good morning. Martha Salazar for the Purchasing Department. If you will just, item 12A, 1, 2, A, B, and C, no action or discussion necessary. On item 3, it's the presentation of bids received as detailed and attached herein for the purpose of award
Monica.
of bid to the lowest vendor meeting all specifications and/or requirements as attached here too. We had 11 packets distributed. We had 3 participants, and we are recommending Elite Transportation as the awarded vendor.
What's the name?
Elite Transportation out of McAllen. I need action.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Item 4 is presentation of the Hidalgo County's approved pool of architects for nomination by Hidalgo County's Commissioners Court of at least 3 firms in connection with the design and construction of a new courthouse complex and possible renovations or additions to the existing courthouse facility for Hidalgo County. You have just been distributed the current approved list of architects. There are 12 firms, actually only 11 are viable as number 5, which is VA Architecture, is no longer exists due to the death of Mr. Vargas. And you
Which is that one,
have,
ma'am, I'm sorry?
number 5 is not available. So that leaves you with 11 firms.
So we come in with suggestions from the court? Is that what we're doing?
Yes, you all are going to nominate at least 3. Of course, you can, that's the minimum. You can nominate all 11 of them. You can, then the next step would be to score and grade them.
I nominate all 11. Everybody.
Of the 11, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 6 from Hidalgo
Whoever's
County,
interested can come.
7 from Hidalgo County, and 4.
Judge,
And 3 from
there
Cameron.
may be a potential conflict with number 3. Number 3, prepare the master plan for this project, and I believe there's a potential conflict there.
I think it's an asset. I mean, they know more about the project.
Yeah, but I think the issue is that they might have an advantage over the other folks.
I don't think, I don't want to be involved in disqualifying them for having done the basic work, the comprehensive plan. What we're now going to be doing.
Steve, on that?
I don't see a conflict there.
All right.
I think I've seen issues where individuals have been consultants, engineering firms and architectural firms have been involved in developing master plans. But I do more research, but I think there's a potential issue there, that they have an advantage over the rest of the individuals.
I mean, all they're doing is selecting a location for a courthouse and what we need. What it's going to look like is still going to be designed by whoever we select.
That's correct. I'd like to go ahead and,
Now, I would like the court to also see the second option I left in there, which is the court can seek a project-specific RFQ and possibly enlist participation from other parts of the state. It's up to the court. I mean, you have a viable list that you can select,
I think
elect
we have
from.
very compatible people here in our area.
Correct. I just left that option
Sure.
for you all to consider.
Since it involves substantial monies in terms of...
Anywhere, yes, up to $115 million.
Well,
I mean, including a new building and renovation of an existing.
How much?
115?
No, better not cost that much.
Well, those were the preliminary figures in the master
All right.
plan.
you know,
Just projected costs.
Joseph,
Okay. Yes, sir.
I was at a meeting in, not in Austin, but outside Austin anyway. The county built a brand-new courthouse.
In Travis County?
San Marcos, in San Marcos. And there was a tour given to the participants, and I joined the group, and they gave us a tour of the facility. And it's brand new, but the layout sits on 9 acres, 7 or 9 acres. Here, we're limited to a city block or so. But they were talking about building and financing, constructing the courthouse. Do we have the same
Is that your, from what I understood that the...
Hold on, Marty. Do we have what's,
The same ability to do this with some of these people.
all they're going to do is design the specs and what's the courthouse going to look like, what it is that we are going to be later bidding on, and then at that time determining the cost and how we're going to get it funded.
If I may, Commissioner, I was approached for information purposes last week on, was there a possibility the court would seek a project-specific RFQ, and the firm making the inquiry is not on your list, but they had already heard about the next step that the county was going to take. And they did mention coincidentally that architectural firms, there are architectural firms that will also include in their services the facilitating of financing portion of, and we're talking, now that particular firm gave me to understand that that was being done through a P3. That particular firm's services ended up facilitating a P3 financing option. But just coincidentally, because you were mentioning it, I have had a couple of inquiries as to a possible project-specific.
I think that's what Travis County did, and other counties have done the same thing. They had gone on a private-public partnership.
The P3. Now, there has been some information already provided or opinion provided by our district attorney's office, in which his position is that the obligation of a commissioner's court is to construct a courthouse, and by going the P3 route, they are, in essence, delegating that authority. I may not agree with that, but that is what I was given in an email to understand by the DA's office. That the delegation of that authority cannot, I mean, their authority or duty cannot be delegated to a third party. And the DA's position is that that's what he feels is being done. I don't see that rationale, but he is the district attorney.
Maybe you ought to consult with Commissioner.
No, that was something that, actually, it was a related matter that I inquired about with the district attorney, and then it turned to that issue, and that was the response that I got. I'm paraphrasing it, of course. I'm summarizing. But no, it hasn't been addressed through Mr. Crane. This was something that came about on a related issue with the DA's office, and that's how that came to pass. Now, I also know that many counties have used the P3 to construct courthouses, especially the latest one being Travis.
So what do you suggest, ma'am?
No, I mean, we need to, like I said, the minimum is 3 firms. You can
Are you suggesting
score and
that, or are
grade.
you suggesting item B, requesting authority to advertise?
I think
Open it up to
you should
everybody.
really open it up to yourselves
advertising will take how long, Marty?
to grade and score them?
The advertising. If we were to let it out again.
Oh, it would take you at least 6 weeks.
Yeah, you got to
6
advertise
to 8
twice,
weeks.
2 weeks apart.
It would be 3. It would be 2 ads, yes, but then receiving them, distributing them, giving them a timeline to grade and score, and then coming back.
If we
ranking,
believe that
and
we've
then
got
negotiating.
competent, qualified people here in the valley, then
You may want to do all the ones from the valley. It's up to you.
People here.
why can't we just pick 3 or 4, whatever number?
Whatever number you want.
We're required to pick, and then pick from those.
I'm just giving you
Or
all the
11.
options available.
Judge, or just everybody?
Marty, just a simple question. When you're talking about P3 financing, do we cross that bridge, or did we pass the bridge if we already let architectural services? I mean, because you can implement P3 financing after you got design. It's not necessarily necessary.
Oh, no,
before
I
design.
was just telling you of a firm's information for me, and they were looking into, they just wanted to know, had the court decided whether it would be from the pool, or would they go out on a project
Well,
specific?
I'm just trying to understand.
No, you don't
cross
have
the
to involve
bridge.
the architect in that portion of it at all.
Yeah, I mean, it can come up down the road.
Oh, no, it would be that would be something really related to
If
the
it's
court.
legally cleared and all.
Correct. And number
Okay.
2, what I would suggest that the court, when that issue is brought up, that it be open to a lot of P3 firms who do this.
Marty, also keep in mind the statute requires the county select the most qualified engineer or architectural firm.
Well, of course.
So if you open it up and advertise, you might be able to get individuals that are more qualified.
That's why I left it on the agenda, but it's strictly the option of the court.
We've got 12 firms named here.
11 that you can use.
after we take out Reynaldo Vargas. We ought to be able to pick one out of 11.
Well, the thing I see on this list is that they're all local.
They're all local, except for one from Austin.
Right.
Yes.
You've got
Correct.
7 from Hidalgo County and 3 from Cameron County.
If we approve all of them.
Well, we can approve all of them, or we can limit it to 3, I think is the number that Marty was suggesting.
Well,
But there's nothing wrong with opening it up.
to do that.
Oh, there's nothing, you can do them all. The minimum that we do require, it's just a protocol that we've adopted, a process, is 3.
Picking 3, but you can pick as many as you want.
I think we should just open it up to the people on the list, and if they're interested, then we can rank them and move forward.
So you're saying send a letter to all these individuals asking if they're interested in this project? Okay.
To do the raising and ranking. So we can expedite it.
So you want to make that
I would like some clarification, though, from the court, more direction. Are you going to be accepting, if one of the, even if you do them all, any kind of partnerships with other firms? Because the way this is done, it's your qualifications to do the service you want, not necessarily that you, in other words, the firms at this point cannot add any partnerships.
If they feel they need to, why not? As long as they
Well,
just charge us what
under
they're telling us they're
consulting,
going to charge us.
under consulting, but not to grade them.
Just
In
because
other words,
no,
it's based on their qualification.
Yeah, because you
at
can
this
grade in
point.
their qualifications, Judge.
Now,
not-
if they already have partners within their SOQ it's with the county, that's already in there. I'm just asking, that would be something that the court would need to consider under their request to hire a sub.
Maybe that's why it's best to just advertise, Marty. That
I
way
don't know
they
that
can form
it
partnerships.
requires a motion, Judge, but if it does. I
It
move
requires
that
the
we-
selection, yes.
Excuse me, that we do name the 11 firms listed here. A starting point, and then for the judge to name a committee for the rating and ranking of this. Okay.
Is there any discussion on that particular motion?
I'll second it. I think that at the end of the day, if we look at every one of these objectively, I think at the end of the day, we can find a local firm that can do this job
All right.
and do it by committee.
And that'll
I agree.
include
And the
your,
committee members should be,
Commissioner, you said local firm, but there is one from Austin.
Yeah,
There's
well,
one from
include-
Austin and one from
including the
Nueces.
whole-
Including that?
all of them, all 11 that are on.
You
on the
second that
pool.
already?
Yes.
and when is the committee supposed to meet and when are we supposed to report back?
Once
For
they get the
action.
packet, you can, we can let them have 2 weeks, but you haven't named a committee yet.
You got to establish a committee, and you also have to establish criteria that you're going to use, Judge, to,
Well, the criteria is already included in the pool.
I'm sorry?
The pools, the architects, when they become part of the pool, the original RFQ shows the criteria.
Marty, but I would think you got to have some criteria for this project because it's a large project. One of these individuals might not be able to develop construction plans for a courthouse.
Well, remember, their SOQ should demonstrate to us what type of buildings they've constructed or designed, and that's all contained in their SOQ.
So we can
If you have
eliminate-
if you're a grader and that firm's statement of qualifications does not provide you any information related to a large government building or industrial building that would be comparable to a complex project as a courthouse, then you can't possibly score them on that aspect of it.
All right, well, we've agreed on a pool of 11, it
Okay.
appears. at least the consensus. Now, the only issue is,
Who is going to be your
within 2
committee?
weeks, the committee has to be appointed. We can do that today. And then they meet within that 2-week period of time, evaluate them, and report back to us in 2 weeks. And then we take action
On ranking them,
on ranking, yes.
yes.
Now, the issue then becomes who are the committee members that are being,
Is
But
that on
I
the
don't think you
agenda
can
to-
select a committee at this point, Judge, because
It's
it's not
on
an
the
agenda
agenda,
item to
Judge.
effect.
We have it for next week.
Judge, that's
This-
on the agenda to select a committee today.
okay.
I can place it on for next week. I just didn't know what direction the court was going to take.
You take a vote already, Judge?
All right, then we have a motion. Do we have a second of proceeding
Nominating
with
all
the
11.
creation of a pool of the 11 architects that are listed? All right, those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries, and make sure that by next week we have that agenda
Yes, sir,
item.
it'll be on. You will take no action on B then?
Is there any notice that you have to give these 11 firms that they need to prepare some kind of proposal that can be looked at by the committee members?
No. On this particular service, you can't ask for a proposal.
We're just
Until
going to
they're
look at
ranked.
what we have in place.
You're going to look at qualifications, and then, you're going to score and grade them. We'll present a grid, and from there you will rank.
All right.
Marty, how old is this listing?
It'll be coming up in a year. I'm not in a year, in February. We just got authority to advertise for the new pool.
Because what I was thinking, maybe some of these individuals might have already worked on larger projects that were not included in the original.
That's, our pools are for 1 year.
Okay, next item.
That's it. That's all I have. Thank
do
you.
have- No
Judge,
action
we
on
do
B?
have executive session.
We do have,
Yes,
all
sir.
right, pursuant to 55107 and 072, need a motion to proceed to executive session. Those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Aye, motion carries. We're going to be in executive for a short while. It's 11:24, we're back in open session. As I understand it, there's nothing to act on in open session, Mr.
No,
Guerra?
sir, there is nothing under A, B, or C.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Aye, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.